Welcome to another observability clinic. Today, we're starting a new format. It's Dynatrace community practices. So I've invited what we call Dynatrace rock stars or community rock stars to actually show their tips and tricks and best practices. Today's episode 1, where we have 3 topics. And Danny, I have you here. Welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everyone. I'm Danne. I'm SRE from Kyndryl in Brazil. And I'm working with Dynatrace since 2 years and seems a long time to me. And I am certified associate, professional, and also the cloud autonomous endorsement.
Wow. That definitely makes you a Dynatrace community rockstar and user. Hey, you have 3 topics prepared because I asked you, what are the things that you would like to show? Can you give us a quick overview of what you have prepared for us? I think you have a slide there.
Yes, sure. Let me move on. So I have prepared something that comes to us really frequently, that is the application detection. And sometimes it's not so easy to do it. It feels like, but sometimes not so. And that's what I have prepared for today. And these are the two. One is alerting on missing data for custom metrics, which is not always so sparse data, and we have some tricks on configuring that I will show to you. And the last but not least is custom problem tiles. It feels like obvious when we create a tiles for problems, but I have some tips, I have some tricks on that to show.
Perfect. And so that as a reminder for everyone, if you're watching this and if you're interested in one of the 3 in YouTube, you can directly jump because we've put timestamps in YouTube. If you're watching this on Dynatrace University, just fast forward to the right timestamp. But yeah, really cool. So app detection, real user monitoring, alert on missing data. That's a big topic. What if data doesn't come in? And then custom problem tiles. Danny, take it away. Let's start.
Thank you, Andy. So let me move on to the first one, that is the app detection. So when we have an application that use CDN, that is a content delivery network like Akamai, we have the first URL, where is the user's access. And this can be a shared domain where we have many sub-applications behind this domain. And when we configure the Dynatrace to split the app detection by the domain name, as we have here, let me change to my pointing. I'm not sure if I can do it. Pointer options, visible, right? I'm not sure if you can see me. Yep. Yeah. See, the domain matching.kyndryl.com, for example, but we have many applications behind this. So that's my application. So we have the Kyndryl.com and easy tools, that one of my applications I have into this domain. And we can see that Rooksit is properly working. We can see the code 200. That means it's properly working fine. But in Dynatrace, we see no data. So why? What can be the reason for that? If you look to the code here, we have the Kyndryl and also the detection rule also to match in Kyndryl. So why is not working? What can be wrong with this? And that's maybe the reason. If you look to the source code of the application, you see that the Rooksit agent is successfully injected, but look to the app code, the app ID. It is pointing to the My Web application. For those who don't know, this My Web application ID is easily identified on any SaaS tenant. No matter if you have many of SaaS tenants, the My Web application will be always this ID. So it's easy to troubleshoot, it's easy to identify. So it is not matching to my custom app detection. So that's the reason. All the traffic I'm doing on this application is going to my web application, not mine. So the app detection do not work as we wanted to. So how to identify the proper app detection you need to use? So one trick is go to the custom multidimensional analysis and create a custom multidimensional analysis and look for the request URL from your application. So you have your www.kyndryl.com / that's your application code, the request. So you look for it, and then you see all the requests coming. And what you need to do is go to the distributed trace that is collected automatically by Dynatrace. And into the distributed trace, you can see some cool information like the CDN information, like here on the host. See, the host is completely different from the Kyndryl.com. So you get the forwarded host that every trace should be collecting, and you do configure this forwarded host into your app detection. And after you do that, you can see that, we have now two, that the Kyndryl one that was not working, and now the internal one, that is the CDN. And you can see that the data is now being processed. So it means your application is starting to collect your data. And if you come back to the source code of the Rookseed code, you can see that the app ID is completely different from the previous one. So that match your app detection, app perspective you create in Dynatrace. So that's how we configure an app detection when you have shared domain, when you have CDN. And we face a lot of issues with client, on my case, and we catch on the client, hey, what is your application URL? And they show us the CDN, the URL where users accessing, but that's not the URL we configure on the Dynatrace app detection, and they get confused. Which URL should I pass to the Dynatrace team to configure my app detection? And that's how you can identify by yourself recording the clients when they do not know. I'm not sure if this makes sense to you, Andy. I'm not sure if you have some experience with that.
Yeah, let me just actually, thanks for asking me, and kind of repeat what I learned. Because in Dynatrace, if you install the Dynatrace agent on the server side, obviously we get all of your distributed traces. Now, when you enable run real user monitoring, there's a default application. We call it applications, where we actually put the real user data into, we call them applications, right? And there's a default one, it's called my web application. So that means by default, everything goes into the default app, even though if you have configured your own application with a URL that you think is the right URL, but if it's behind a CDN, this might not be the real URL. And so what you just told me is, why not just search for the backend distributed traces for that particular URL pattern? Because there, on the distributed trace, on the pure path, you also get the information about the real URL of your system behind the CDN, and then use this for the application detection. So that's a really cool explanation. And I honestly haven't thought about this yet, and it's awesome. It's a great tip.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Once we have identified this tip, we start to use them with all clients, and the onboarding for application time, it did decrease drastically. So we do not need to keep carrying the client, hey, what is your URL? We can find by ourselves. So this helps us a lot.
Yeah, and maybe one more thing, just for people that it's the first time that they hear about Dynatrace and real user monitoring, because you said often behind one URL have different apps. Obviously, our URL definition, like the application patterns, they're very flexible. I think you can do it based on the host name, based on URL patterns. Because sometimes, like at Dynatrace, for instance, where we have www.dynatrace.com, then we have blog.dynatrace.com, then maybe we have dynatrace.com/services, and you want to treat this differently. So however you have it, and whether it is behind a CDN that is messing with your host names, or providing a different host name, however you have it in Dynatrace, you can configure which URLs should be sent to which particular application in Dynatrace, so that you really have all the data in one place that belongs together. That's awesome. Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Shall
what
we
else?
Move to the next? Yeah.
Please, let's do it.
So that is a cool one. We are now alerting on missing data. It feels obvious because Dynatrace on the custom event for alerting already have this feature. You can alert on missing data, but the problem is, if you are injecting custom metrics, this data can be sparse, and Dynatrace will not be able to monitor because it has a long interval between the data. So I will show now one example. This one custom device I have created, that's my motorcycle bike. I did configure some sensors for IoT to monitor the temperature of the oil. So we have 3 sensors to monitor. And I'm not sending the data so frequently, every 1 minute, because I have a network to pay. And I only sending data every 5 minutes, or you can be any sparse longer than that. So that's the gaps you see. I'm not seeing a complete line. I'm seeing some dots every 5 minutes. And when we go to the custom event for alerting configuration, you have this alert on data missing, but you have this, it should not be sparse time series. So when I enable this, you can see that the problem information start to appear right away, even if we do have data coming. But due to this interval, I cannot enable because it will be alerted every time. Okay. So how to resolve that? Well, Dynatrace have APIs, many APIs, and we can use those. One of those APIs is this get metric data points. And what I do is I create a synthetic, because Dynatrace can automate something with synthetic. Normally we use synthetic only to monitor if the application is available or not. But in this case, I'm using for automation. I'm using Dynatrace synthetics, calling Dynatrace API to retrieve the data and see if my data is missing or not. So that's the really cool feature we have, the post-execution script. So with a little skills on JavaScript, you can create some simple code as this one. So I'm getting the responsibility for the API, and I'm doing some parsing the JSON, and I'm doing a validation. If it's 0, it means no interval, no data into the interval. And if not, so my metric is fine. So that's how I'm doing. And if you look on the response body, if you look to the response body on the JSON I'm getting, I can see the amount of data I'm getting on this interval. And if this changes to 0, it means no data. So it means I should be alerted. So I think it would be easier if I do a demonstration. So that's a cool, it's just refreshing. That's a cool dashboard I have created for this. So that's my sensors I have on my motorcycle. That's the history of the temperature. And we see the complete line here because of the time frame. If I change this to a lower time frame, we see the dots. And I will go through this in a moment. So let me show you how this data look like. See, that's the sparse interval. So that's why I cannot set the alerting as I show in the PPT. Oh, there you go, the refresh. But there is a transformation I can do in this specific case, because I'm sending data every 5 minutes. If I do a transformation like this, because Dynatrace also allows us to do some transformation with the metrics, which is really, really cool, I can make these dots to become a line using the rollup. So if I do the rollup, AVG, and then I put the interval of my data I'm sending every 5 minutes, you will see that the dots now becomes a line. And if you do that, you can work with this carry here on the custom EV formatting. It will work. So you do not need to go to my solution to create a synthetic calling the API. But the problem is you can only use the rollup if the data you are sending is lower or shorter than 6 minutes, or I mean 1 hour, because the rollup has a limitation. If you try to put like 90 minutes, you are not able to. So that's come to my solution, to the synthetic calling the API. Let's say you are sending data for a football game, right? So you only send the data from the beginning of the game and the end of the game. It is 90 minutes, so it is longer to the roll-up. And you will not be able to do this transformation here. So that's why I come to this solution. I will show you my synthetic. Let me click on my synthetic here, and I will open it. We can see some sparse because I was doing some maintenance mode. I was only running into the business hour in Brazil, and that's why we see this gap here. So if you see the code for the HTTP request I'm doing, so I'm getting that's the API we have, and that's the transformation. So I'm looking the data from the last 7 minutes, right? So I'm sending every 5 minutes. So if I look higher than that, I will get the result. And I'm storing my token here into the credential vault. And it is a normal user password credential vault, so no one will see my token. And that's the post-execution script, really simple JavaScript code. So I'm getting the body, I'm parsing, getting only the value I wanted to, and do a simple if. If it is 0, so it means no data. So what I will do now is I will stop my synthetic that is sending the data, and we should see the dashboarding show some troubles. So let me show you the result, how it looks like when the execution happens. So that's not successful. So you can see that's the data I'm carrying. So that's the null where I'm sending the no data, and that's the value of the temperature. See? And what happens when that is failed? It gets no data at all, so we get total count 0. So that's when I set my synthetic to alert. So if I can go back to my dashboard, which is that's not my dashboard. That's the dashboard. So I have created this. I keep watching the synthetic that is doing the monitoring for me. I keep watching the value because I also have a monitoring into the temperature threshold as well, because if it gets so higher,
I want to get an alert too.
Yep. And then I have this widget, this tile here, that is showing me the success of the data validation from my synthetic. When it's success, it show here. When it fail, I can see. So yesterday I was testing. It was a cool Sunday here in Brazil, so I was testing my motorcycle. So I shut it off, and then the data stopped to sending, and then I get the alerts from the synthetic, right? So on this dashboard, I can see if the temperature is fine, if it's healthy, or if the data is not coming or not. And here I can see how many times the data is stopped to show. So really cool information into one single panel, so I can have my motorcycle health into one single glass. And it's out of the box thinking, right? I'm using 2 filters from Dynatrace to monitor something that is not common. I'm using the synthetic to automate and the APIs which Dynatrace provide to us. What do you think on this solution, Eddie?
So I think I learned multiple things. First of all, I want you to do another session with me on metrics expression, because you showed us also the roll-up function, which I believe maybe not many people actually know about, because the roll-up function basically takes the values, like the average, and then uses this for all of the data points in that time frame. Right? So that means it gives you consistent data, even though you don't have consistent data. I think metrics expression on its own are extremely powerful, and we should probably have a session again. So this is great. The second thing is, I've seen this with you now, but also with other customers and users that are using synthetic as an automation framework. I've seen this recently with another client, and they have used this to implement SLOs that understand business hours, right? They were basically using SLOs and synthetics to validate SLO only during business hours, and sending alerts in case something is wrong just during business hours. And this is really phenomenal what you do. I wonder one thing. So that means you're looking at your synthetic result, and you know based on that whether it fails or not. In theory, I guess what you could also do, just to give you some additional thought on how to extend this, from your synthetic test, if it fails, you could actually send an error event to Dynatrace. So you can make another Dynatrace event call, actually creating an error right away. That would also be an option, right? But it's really powerful.
Right. Yeah. I'm doing this, in fact, to another client with a different situation, but I told them to use the metric events, not the metric events, but the event API to do a Dynatrace synthetic to call the event API to alert in some conditions. Yeah, we are doing that. It is really cool feature. We normally only think in okay, I'm using Dynatrace API, I will open the Postman and I will do my work there. No, Dynatrace can do the APIs for you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And for those people that don't know Dynatrace, first of all, synthetic, right? You can run either HTTP tests, you also have browser-driven tests, and as Danny has shown, you can also write your own scripts where you can do a lot of validations. It's truly powerful. And the other thing that you also highlight here, right? You can send external data to Dynatrace, while Dynatrace itself with the agent can ingest a lot of data. We also have possibilities to pull in data, let's say from Prometheus, from OpenTelemetry, but you can also push data to Dynatrace through our metrics ingest API. But yeah, this is truly powerful.
That's another solution I'm also using. I do have one client that we are calling the synthetic to get the response for them, and they wanted to monitor if the status of the synthetic it is going healthy or not based on a time frame, based into the window time frame. Synthetic cannot hold values, so it can compare with the next execution, right? So what I propose to this client is, let's use another event, a second event here, to instead of get the metric, we can only post the metric. So that's what we are doing. So we are calling the synthetic to post the data, and then we use the custom event for it to monitor the history. That's a lot of other feature we are doing. So synthetic is not only for monitoring, it's out for automation. That's really cool.
Cool. And then the last thing I want to say here, because it's just fresh on my mind, you have a beautiful dashboard here with different visualizations. You have the honeycomb, you have the regular charts, you have the heat map. Folks, if you're interested in learning more about dashboards, last week we just did another observability clinic on the latest improvements on the dashboarding side. Our team is always improving dashboards, and check it out as well if you want to learn more about dashboard capabilities. But now there's one more.
Yeah, there's one last but not least, right? The custom problem tiles. And this one is really interesting. I would like to move on directly to the demo if you don't mind, because I think it will be more interesting. Let me show you directly on demo. So I will start using this same dashboard. So when we try to add a problem tile, so if you look here for the problem and you just drag and drop, which is really cool. What is the future? What is the future options you have? Only the time frame and the custom management zone. If you wanted to do a problem tile for one specific entity or a set of entity, from here, that is not possible to do. So when is the first time you're using Dynatrace to create a dashboard, you'll normally get lost. Or, wait, I cannot create a problem for this case. I can, of course, add a filter and then go the filter to some text, but it's not so trivial. So what is the solution for that? Well, in fact, Dynatrace has something that is out of the box already. So if you look for the problems here, and you have this filter on the top here, on the top. So you can start filtering by, for example, an entity. So if you're looking for the HTTP monitor, and then you select your HTTP monitor by community process, for example. So that will change completely the view to show only these specific entities. So this can be anything. This can be a host group. This can be a tag. This can be a minimum zone. So you can do the filter whatever you want. You can even go more crazy. You can do entity selector. So you can do some transformation for call it by calling from. So you can do this parenting thing. And if you like what you see, the only thing you need to do is into dashboard. Really, really cool, simple. So you can put a name. So problems for one entity only, and then into dashboard. And when you open the dashboard, you can see the tile right there. So let's say you have a, see?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
That's only for that entity. That's the difference. That one for the entire environment, this one for only the entity. So sometimes it is missing. You can also do some things like this background color, which is really, really neat. So only to look for dashboard from far behind, you don't even need to see the numbers. If you see the line red or green, you know that's probably or healthy. So this is a really quick, but sometimes I get questioned by many clients, hey, how can I create a dashboard and see problems for each of those environments? I want to see problems for stage, dev, and prod. How can I do that? So you work on the entity selector rule and go to the problems and into dashboard. That's it.
That's cool. And then do me a favor, because people may wonder, where somewhere this filter must be stored. If you click on, if you edit the dashboard again, like if you click on done here and then go to the settings of the dashboard. So go into the dots, configure.
Yeah,
for settings.
Here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then
configure more.
Yeah, exactly. There's the dashboard JSON.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. If you look at this, so folks, dashboards are truly powerful, right? And obviously behind the scenes, we store the dashboard, the layout, and every single tile that is on there as JSON. That means you can fully automate dashboards, whether you are extracting it or storing it through the Dynatrace API directly. We also have a tool called Monaco, monitoring as code, but here it is, right? That's the problem selector on the bottom. So show me all the problems, and then the problem selector is really the additional thing. And one could ask, why is this problem selector not an additional UI option? I guess maybe they could put it in the future, but there's certain, let's say, hidden things that show up here, obviously, because that's a real source of truth for every dashboard.
Right, right. So that it's a simple, but I think it can help a lot for the people who are looking for cool dashboards around the world.
Exactly. One filter that comes to mind, because you said you can filter on pretty much everything. I would, for instance, maybe filter on alerting profiles that I'm responsible for, right? If you have, you want to know, are there any ongoing problems that I'm responsible for? Because typically I see people defining alerting profiles to say which problems go to which channel. And so you want to know who is currently actively working on a problem.
Right.
Cool. Wow. Danny, this is amazing. You're the first one that did the our community event here with showing tips and tricks. I really encourage you, first of all, Danny, to come back with more. And I encourage everybody else, if you think, hey, I have something up my sleeves that I do every day with Dynatrace, I think it's pretty cool, just let me know. And we'll get you on the YouTube channel as well. And your session will also be posted on Dynatrace University. It's really a way to educate people with the cool things that we have available in Dynatrace.
Thank you for the invite.
Always happy. And I know tomorrow, I know at the time of the recording, it is September 19th, I think, aren't you? Or not tomorrow, but the next couple of days, you're in Sao Paulo.
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yes, it's tomorrow, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy that show. It's a great way to connect with your community face to face.
Thank you. I will. Certainly I will.
Thank you. All right. One last favor, Danny. Do me a favor. Go back to the slides. I think in the last slide, you have your picture and name up again, if I'm not mistaken, just so that people know if they want to maybe also follow up with you on the community. Go to community.dynatrace.com. This is where all of the community in Dynatrace meets. It's a great way to ask questions and get in touch with people. And some other links here that you can see getting your own trial. If you're new to Dynatrace, just sign up for a SaaS trial, and that's it. So with this, I definitely say thank you, obrigado, and ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Tschüss.
Tschüss.